All right, I think we can go ahead and start. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Diplomatic Fellowships Information Session. Thank you all for joining us this afternoon. My name is Marvat Aljurdi, and I'm the Senior Coordinator and Special Advisor for the MENA region with the UCF Global Perspectives and International Initiatives. On behalf of our office, I would like to welcome our speakers for today, Patricia Scroggs and Nicholas Grandchance. Patricia has been the director of the Randall program since January 2006. She joined Howard University after 20 years of service in Asia, Latin America, and Washington as a Foreign Service officer. Until November 2005, she served as the director of the East Asian and Pacific Bureau Office of Regional and Security Policy. In this capacity, she led a large office that handled security, multilateral affairs, counterterrorism, strategic planning, foreign assistance, congressional affairs, and transnational issues for the Pacific Asian region. During her Washington assignments, she was chief of the Asia, Near East, and Africa Division in the Trade Office, special assistant to the Assistant Secretary for East Asian and Pacific Affairs, and an economic officer and a science, technology, and environment officer in the Office of Japanese Affairs. Her languages are Japanese and Spanish. She has an MA in International Relations from the Johns Hopkins University School of Advanced International Studies and did considerable leadership, management, language, and area studies training at the State Department's Foreign Service Institute. She was awarded 4 Superior Honor Awards and the overall B. Harriman Award for Outstanding Contributions to Diplomacy. Patricia, welcome. We are honored to have you here with us. Our second speaker is Nicholas Grandchance, and Nick is a Foreign Service Officer at the U.S. Department of State, and he's currently positioned in Istanbul, Turkey. He previously served in Beijing, China, from 2018 to 2020 as a consular officer and public diplomacy officer. And Nick is a native of Orlando, Florida, and also a proud graduate of UCF and a 2021 UCF 30 under 30 alumni. After completing dual bachelor degrees, he became a Charles B. Rangel International Affairs Fellow and received a master's degree from the American University School of International Service. Nick, welcome home. Now, without further ado, I give you the floor. Please go ahead.
Well, thank you very much. And hello, everyone. It is great to be with all of you here virtually. I'm currently actually in Istanbul, Turkey, serving my second assignment. So it's good to virtually be home back in Orlando with all of you. And so I'm going to leave as much time as possible. Hello, Mrs. Scroggs. I'm going to leave as much time as possible in the end for your questions about the different fellowships and the opportunities. But I don't know if Mrs. Scroggs, if you want me to continue, or if you want to jump in now, you let me know. I'll just continue. Perfect. So there were a handful of fellowships. The Pickering Fellowship and the Rangel Fellowship are the 2 that lead into the Foreign Service through the Department of State. And there's the Payne Fellowship, which leads into USAID. Mrs. Scroggs, do you want to take over or do you want me to continue?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Perfect. Cool. So I'm a Rangel Fellow, and essentially, a lot of questions that come up about the fellowships are kind of what the differences are between them. So like I just said, Rangel and Pickering lead into the Foreign Service through the Department of State, and Payne leads into USAID, the Agency for International Development. And essentially what you get out of these fellowships is a career in international relations, a career in the Foreign Service, a career advancing US foreign policy in whatever facet that may be. So the Foreign Service as a whole, to just give the overview, there are 5 main cones. One being public diplomacy, which is what I am. I'm a public diplomacy officer, and I'll talk more about that later on. Political, economic, management, and consular. And so briefly, what each of these cones is responsible for, consular officers, you're hearing a lot about them right now with what's going on in Afghanistan and that entire evacuation effort. They're the ones that are responsible for American citizens overseas for any type of crises or services that are needed overseas. If you don't know, anytime you get into any trouble overseas as an American citizen, there's a consular officer that is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to assist you in a time of need, to help you repatriate to the United States, or if there's an earthquake or some other natural disaster that takes place, we're the first ones on scene to assist American citizens and help them get to safety. And at the same time, they're also responsible for non-immigrant and immigrant visas. And so they every day, that's what I'm doing now. I'm working in consular affairs here in Istanbul. We are the first line of the immigration services of the United States. So everybody that's coming to the US that requires a visa, they interview with somebody like me. We go through the entire process, check their background, security, and we make the decision on whether or not that person is viable for a visa to enter the United States. Additionally, public diplomacy officers, and I'm biased, I will say we have the most fun of all the officers in the work that we get to do. We are the ones that our job is to know what is happening on the ground in that country, to know the next generation of leaders, to identify them, to work with them, whether they're students or scholars or athletes or artists, entrepreneurs, engaging with them and helping them connect with US culture and society, and making sure that they understand US foreign policy and where it's coming from. So these are different jobs such as directors of American centers overseas, which are the centers responsible for explaining US culture and so on to that particular country, and spokespeople responsible for explaining US foreign policy to that public. Public or political and economic officers, very similar in what they do, except for what they focus on. Political officers focus on internal and external relations within that country from a political perspective. So an internal perspective of a political officer, they're the ones that are focused on really making sure that they understand what's happening domestically within that country. What is happening within that parliament or that Congress, the different laws that are taking place, what's happening in the judicial system, and so on. Externally, they're focused on that country's relationship with its neighbors. So China, which China's relationships looking like with the rest of Southeast Asia and the rest of its Asian neighbors. If you are an economic officer, you're doing the same thing from an economic perspective, but in reverse. Domestically, you're focused on that nation's GDP, what's happening from an import and export basis, and how that's affecting that economy. And externally, you're focused on that country's economic relationship with its neighbors in other parts of the world. Management officers literally keep the embassy moving. They're responsible for all the contracts, all of the motor pool, the vehicles moving in and out. They're the ones that maintain direct relationships with the host government and making sure that our functions as an embassy can continue and manage all of those affairs. And so that's an overview of the 5 cones in that sense. And at the same time, oh, perfect. This is beautiful. I will stop there and turn it over to Mrs. Rock.
Hi, everyone, and hi, Nicholas. Thank you so much for being here. I apologize. For some reason, I was having problems getting in, but I'm really happy to be here and really happy to be talking to University of Central Florida because we have gotten such wonderful fellows from the school. So I want to talk, Nick has done a really great overview of the Foreign Service itself and some of the things that we do. This for our fellowship is really important because one of the things that's different from this fellowship than many other fellowships is that when you get the fellowship, you get the job at the end. So get the fellowship, you have graduate school in between, and then you have a job waiting for you at the end of it. Now, that said, we do have a 5-year service obligation, so you want it to be a job that you really want. And I think with the Foreign Service, it's just such an interesting thing to do that hopefully it will be of interest to you. So when I first came into the Foreign Service, I knew from a fairly young age I was interested in something international, but I'm from a small town. My family never really traveled much. I don't think I was on a plane until I was 20 years old. So although I knew I wanted to do something international, I didn't immediately think Foreign Service because I just couldn't imagine moving so often. But I took the test to keep a friend company. I passed it. and because I wasn't nervous, and I kept passing things because, again, I wasn't nervous because I wasn't going to go into the Foreign Service. And then one day they called me and they said, "Would you like to join the Foreign Service?" And of course I said yes, because I thought, I am far too young to be this settled down. I really want to experience what it's like to live and work overseas. But I would have told you I would have stayed 5 years. Um, but I found it so interesting. I think two things that for me were really important in the Foreign Service. The first one is that it is a job that has so much change and you learn constantly. Every job we do is different than every other job we do. We're constantly learning new skills. We're working with new people. We're working on new issues. So intellectually, it keeps it very fresh. So if you're one of those people that almost can't decide what you want to do for the rest of your life because you're interested in everything, the Foreign Service is perfect, because you really will do a little bit of everything. And it is truly a fascinating job. The second thing is, I truly believe that what we do matters. So whether we're helping an American citizen on the worst day of their life, or helping to try to resolve conflict in different countries, or we are trying to promote international exchange so that people within the United States get to know other countries better, and people from other countries get to know us as a country better. It is a really exciting thing to do. So, and I think it truly matters to the United States and also to the countries we work with overseas. So I was always really proud to do the job. So my 5 years turned into 20, and if I were alone in the world, I would still be in the Foreign Service because I truly, truly loved the work, and realized very quickly that it was a perfect career for me. So I always feel really excited about going out and talking about it, because I think it's such an interesting career. Now let's talk a little bit about the fellowships. I'm going to start out by talking about the Wrangell Fellowship, but please know that the Wrangell and the Pickering Fellowship are almost exactly the same. The only difference is where we do our domestic internship. Wrangell does theirs with the US Congress, looking at Congress's role in foreign policy. Pickering does its domestic internship at Maine State Department in Washington, D.C. So other than that, it is exactly the same. Was not always the case, which is why we have two programs that do something similar. But this is good for you, because quite honestly, if you apply to one, you should be applying to both. You double your chances of getting it. And right now we're going to be giving out 90 fellowships this year that basically pay for your graduate studies and lead to a career in the Foreign Service. So I'm going to start with Wrangell. Wrangell began in 2002 as a way to promote excellence and diversity in the Foreign Service. Foreign Service has always been an interesting career, but it was not a career that was particularly diverse. Traditionally, it was white male, East Coast, Ivy League. Nothing wrong with that, but we are so much more than that as a country. And we know that when we're sitting at a policy table, you need people that have different perspectives, so that you're really looking at all sides of a problem. And when we're out internationally, we want them to see that the strength of our country is our diversity. So this program was born as a way to bring in people that perhaps would not traditionally be diplomats under the old system. So we're trying to bring new people in, and we hope that you'll be interested too. The Wrangell program has two aspects to it: the graduate fellowship, which is what I'm going to talk about mostly today, and our undergraduate summer enrichment program. And I'm going to start with the summer enrichment program, just really briefly. This one will open for application in October. The application deadline is the first week of February. This is for those of you who are undergraduates, sophomores, juniors, and seniors, who will be full-time students, have GPAs of at least 3.2, and are interested and are US citizens. That's the other thing. So if you're interested, please do apply. But it's 6 weeks to really think about what you want to do for the rest of your life. And let me tell you, you don't get that very often. It's 6 weeks to think, if I'm interested in international affairs, what might I do with it? And we'll certainly go see the US government agencies. We'll go visit non-governmental organizations like Save the Children or the Africa Society. We'll go see international organizations like the UN or the Organization of American States. We'll look at think tanks. We'll look at private sector, international law, whatever you're interested in. We'll talk to people who work in that area. You also take 2 classes and do a lot of professional development training. So you get very good at doing professional writing. You will get very good at doing presentations and interview skills. So by the time you finish the 6 weeks, we hope that you have a better idea of what you want to do and how to get from here to there. One of the good things about the program is it's fully funded. We pay for your flight to and from DC. We pay for your housing in DC. We pay for your meals. And we give you a stipend of $3,200. Oh, I'm sorry. And we also pay for tuition because you're doing 2 Howard University courses that can be transferred back. And then we give you a stipend of $3,200. So it's a wonderful program, particularly for people that maybe the idea of, not working for a summer and taking an unpaid internship is maybe not something that you can do. This program will help you get a lot of that experience, without having to give up the income for this summer. So please consider that. Again, we'll open in October and we'll close the first week of February. But today I want to talk about the fellowship itself because that one is open. It's open now. It's going to close on September 29th. So if you're thinking about it, you're going to want to start preparing it really soon. The fellowship is a really great opportunity. Basically, it's worth about $106,106,000 over the 2 years of the program. It helps pay for graduate school. So for graduate school, we pay $84,000 over 2 years. That includes $24,000 a year we give to your graduate program, as well as $18,000 that we give you to cover your housing, your books, your transportation during the time that you're in the program. We do that each of the 2 years. In addition, we arrange and pay for internships. The first one is on Capitol Hill, again, working for a U.S. member of Congress. You might be working in a personal office, on the Senate side, in the House side, on committee staff. It's a really interesting way to learn about our own government and, again, Congress's role in U.S. foreign policy. So that's the first. The second one, you go overseas and work at a U.S. embassy, so you can learn about the work and the lifestyle of the Foreign Service. Foreign Service is not like just an ordinary job because, again, we live overseas. Our coworkers also become our really close friends and our family while we're overseas. And so it's a very unique lifestyle that I will say that I really, really enjoyed. In addition to the funding that we give you for the fellowship, most of the graduate programs will also give you additional funding if there's anything left over. We have partnerships with well over 46, 47 different universities right now. You don't have to go to these universities, but they do give wonderful benefits. Next, please. Eligibility requirements for our fellowships. You have to be a U.S. citizen. You have to have a GPA of at least 3.2, and you have to be planning to start graduate school in fall of the year of the next year. So if you're applying now, you're going to start graduate school in fall of 2022. You don't have to have applied yet. All you need to do is be making a plan to do it. What kind of grad schools can you go to? There's a couple of things. They have to be 2-year full-time programs. They have to be at US-based institutions, and they have to be in an area of relevance to the Foreign Service. Luckily, the Foreign Service covers a lot of different issues. So you could do a master's in public policy, a master's in business administration, master's in international relations, a master's in conflict resolution, a master's in international communications, a master's in data analytics. Let's see, master's in international social work is a new one that we're doing this year, which I think should be really interesting. So lots of different areas. You cannot do a master's in sports medicine because that is not relevant, but there are many areas that are. So again, we can look at our partner schools, but again, you do not have to pay for them. I see a question, what if you're already in a master's program? That's fine, but know that for this program, you're gonna have to start a new one in fall of 2022. So the program is designed to be 2 full years. So for those who are in master's programs, you would be starting a new one so that you can complete it within the 2-year period. Next, please. Okay, so orientation. So again, you're going to be selecting your, you're going to be applying on the 29th of September. You're going to know whether or not you are a finalist, and we're going to pick 90 finalists on you're going to pick 90 finalists on November 4th. Then we are going to interview the week of November 30th. You'll do an interview and a writing exercise, and you'll know by December 3rd whether or not you have the fellowship. That means that you're ready to go immediately with, starting your graduate school applications, because you are applying separately for your graduate schools. But I would tell you, once you get the Rango Fellowship, you will have graduate schools fighting over you, because again, you're coming with a prestigious national award, you're coming with money, and you're coming with a job when you get out. So graduate schools love these things. Again, you're strong because you got the Rango Fellowship. So you start your graduate program. You'll probably start getting your admissions notices in March. You'll pick a grad school. Then I'll go back to our slide. We start orientation. Orientation is a week in May. Then you immediately go into your congressional internship. You start graduate school. After you start graduate school, between your first and second year, you're going to go overseas and work at a U.S. embassy. Then you finish your second year of graduate school, and then you start the Foreign Service when you finish. So that's basically what the fellowship is, and I'm having Lindsay just quickly go through. So Ryan, you have a question. Sorry, I think I missed out on something. Can somebody read me his question, please? Sorry, I'm on my phone, so I can't read it well.
Yes, so Ryan has a question. He said he missed something. Does that require you to take a master's program? He said he's just finishing a bachelor's degree and still haven't decided if he will be taking a master's degree.
Yeah, as part of this program, you do have to do a master's degree, but it's paid for, right? So you get a paid master's degree as part of this. Now, let's say you're just finishing your undergraduate and you're like, I am so happy that I'm done. I am not ready to start graduate school next year. Great, you can work for a couple of years. You do not have to apply immediately after or when you're a senior. You can wait 4 or 5 years and come back and apply for this program. Again, the only requirements are that you're a US citizen, you have a GPA of 3.2, and that you're planning to start graduate school in the subsequent year. So if you have graduated, you can apply, or if you're a senior. I see another question. Can somebody read that one to me?
I can read it. I stopped sharing. By the end of the program, will one still have to take the FSOT in order to become a Foreign Service Officer?
Oh, that's an excellent question. So you are required to take the Foreign Service Officer test as part of the program. However, you are not required to pass it. Most of our fellows do pass, but quite honestly, if you make it through our selection process, you're going to do great in the Foreign Service. So again, you have to take it, but you do not have to pass it. There's a second part, for those of you who know about the Foreign Service, which is the Foreign Service Oral Assessment, that you also have to take while you're in the program. However, it will not keep you out of the Foreign Service. You do have 5 years once you join the Foreign Service, so you will need to pass it before you can get tenured. That said, I've been doing this for 16 years, and in the entire time I've been doing it, we've only had one person not pass it, and they were really, really close. So out of like 400 and something people. So trust me, you will pass the Foreign Service Oral Assessment. So these tests will not keep you out of the Foreign Service. The only thing that can keep you out of the Foreign Service, if you get the fellowship, is if you cannot get one of your clearances. So you need to get medical, security, and suitability clearances. So medical is just, you need to be healthy enough to serve around the world. We can work in some difficult places sometimes. You have to, security and suitability just means that you need that you have to be trustworthy and that you have to realize that you represent the American people. And that is a big deal. So our conduct really does matter. The most common reason that young people do not get security clearance is recent use of illegal drugs. Marijuana is in there. It doesn't matter if you do it in a state where it's considered legal, it is still a federal crime. And it's not that you could never have done it, but at a minimum, you're looking at a year. So you can say it's an indiscretion of youth, but if you did it last week, it's not an indiscretion of youth. So again, it has to be, you give it a little bit of time. Now, that's not an exact number. It depends, how much you use, with what consequence, what types of drugs, things like that. But I do like to say that because there's nothing worse than when somebody gets it and then loses it because of something like that. So we try to be very honest about the types of things that can affect a security clearance. But if you can get your clearances, then you'll go through and you will join the Foreign Service. I think there was a question about GPAs. Yeah, we do have the 3.2 is firm. However, if you have gone to a school beforehand, so let's say you first went to a community college and you had a 3.5 coming out of the 2-year community college, and then you're at UCF and you have a 3.1. Well, because you did 2 years at the community college, we can actually combine the two. And we can do a comprehensive, and that might get you over a 3.2. So again, you have to have at least a year at another university in order for us to sign.
We have a few questions. I'm going to throw them at you.
Okay.
I'm going to keep them a little bit in order. If you are a green card holder, can you apply if you don't have your citizenship yet?
No, you have to wait until you have your citizenship. You can get the citizenship that morning and apply in the afternoon and be as competitive as anyone else. But the rules of the fellowship do require that you actually have your citizenship. So come back as soon as you get it. I would say a lot of our fellows are either naturalized or first generation Americans. It's very common. Again, it's part of the rich fabric of this country that makes it so special. So well, we absolutely want you, but you do have to wait until you get your citizenship.
Okay, and somebody previously, I missed their question. Does it hurt or help your chances if you wait after graduating before applying?
It doesn't hurt it doesn't hurt at all. I mean, honestly, we're looking at your potential long term. And so we take people who are seniors, we take people who have been out for 3, 4, 5, 6 years. Last year, we picked somebody who was 38. So again, it's it doesn't matter. It's really when you're comfortable going back. So if you're not ready to go back to graduate school, then wait a couple of years. We will still be here. We just want to wait until you're ready. Also, we recognize that we're asking you to make a 5-year service commitment. So we want to make sure that this is something that you really want, so that you're looking at it and saying, wow, I'm really, really excited about this opportunity, rather than, hey, I really want to go to graduate school, but I don't know about the Foreign Service. So we want you to have thought it through. Let's see, how many people get the fellowship? Wrangell will give 45 this year. Pickering will give 45, so that's 90. I'm also going to talk today about the Donald Payne, which is the international development one. If you're interested in U.S. Agency for International Development, they will give 15 this year. So altogether, that's 105 fellowships that are providing over $100,000 for graduate school and internships, and lead to a career in the Foreign Service. So please apply. Wrangell and Pickering applications are exactly the same. And so if you would apply to one, it's really easy to apply to the other. Pickering application deadline is September 22nd. Wrangell is September 29th. The only thing you need to do is, in your personal statement, change the word Wrangell to Pickering, depending on which one you are doing. Other than that, it is the same application. It's looked at by 2 separate panels. Nobody knows that you applied to both. But honestly, if they did, they'd think it was a good idea. So we try to make it as easy as possible. If you're going to apply to Payne, that one is different because it goes into the USAID Foreign Service, which is all about development, humanitarian assistance. And so you really want to write to that opportunity. So your personal statement is going to look different, because you're going to talk more about development. You also can do the exact same grad schools you can do for the Wrangell and Pickering with pain, but there are some other ones you can also do. USAID work is often more specialized than State Department work. So you might be a health officer, or you might be an environment officer, and you will do that throughout the time you're in USAID. So you can get a master's in public health if you're doing the pain fellowship, a master's in agricultural science, a master's in what else do they do in international or in education, because they often will work on long-term education as part of our foreign assistance program. So there's an even wider range. All of the fellowships are open now for application. The Pain Fellowship closes on November 1st. So again, Wrangell Pickering, very easy to apply to both. The Pain Fellowship is not that different. However, your personal statement should look different.
All right, Patricia, did you want me to keep doing the PowerPoint, or do you want to go back to Q&A?
Let's keep answering questions while people have them, and I'll go back and go through the PowerPoint. But I'd rather speak to what you guys are most interested in.
Okay, Miss Camilla has a question. She says, I am interested in the Foreign Service, but also interested in living and working domestically after the 5-year service requirement. Is there a position or department that allows you to do so? I've heard of civil service, but I'm not sure if that's very different or applies.
Sure. So once you are tenured in the Foreign Service, it can be easier to actually make the jump to civil service. And this is, you can work at State Department, has a foreign service, but it also has a civil service. And so it's not uncommon for people to make the jump, particularly, sometimes it's something in your life that changes. You need to be close to aging parents, or you marry somebody who does not want the foreign service lifestyle. So you have to apply to jobs. It's not automatic, but because you've got the 5 years of service, it's pretty common. Also, there are other agencies you can work at within the US government that work on international affairs. So you could work for DOD. You could work for NASA. NASA has an international office. Department of Energy has an international office. All of them have the civil service, so that is an option after the foreign. After you do your 5 years and you're tenured in the foreign service.
Okay. Okay, I have a couple of questions. In regards to the summer program, do you have to be graduating in a certain semester to apply for the upcoming summer?
You have to have at least 30 credits by the time you apply, because you have to be considered a sophomore as of the first week of February. So, and you have to be a full-time student. So if you're a senior, it's perfectly fine to be a senior, but you still have to be a full-time student in the first week of February. So that means you can't have graduated in December. You have to be a full-time student at that point. But other than that, yes, you can apply. Again, it's a full-time student with at least sophomore status is the requirement.
Patricia, could you talk a little bit more about choosing a master's program? I have somebody who's interested in women's studies. I have someone who's interested in family therapy. What kinds of things would be more applicable and not applicable?
Okay, so women's studies could be, but we want to see that there is, I would really need to look more at individual programs. We want to see that there's an international component to it. So very often people do something like a master's in public policy with a specialization in gender studies. So if it's the type of program that really is getting you ready for, professional life, that's great. If it's very academic and it's just leading towards getting a PhD, that might not be the right program for you. I think if you're putting in your application, certainly put down women's study, but I would also put down something like a master's in public policy or something else, so that it's very clear that, and then once you get the fellowship, we'll work on what your graduate program could be, but you should put down something that very clearly qualifies for it. But yes, it could be women's studies if there's an international focus to it.
Okay.
In terms of family therapy, probably not, because that is not necessarily something that we work on. Social work, yes, because we do work with American citizens on a lot of issues. maybe not family therapy, but again, I would have to look at the specific program. We certainly always want to see that there's some degree of an international focus on it.
I think a lot of people also have questions about building a competitive scholarship. I'll go ahead and share my screen so they can see
Okay,
that.
thank you. So there's lots of things you can do to build a competitive application. And we have these, actually, you can look under each one of these fellowships has tips for preparing a competitive application that will say a lot of what I'm saying here right now. The most important thing to do is when you start is go to a session like this, learn what the fellowship is about. Is it something that interests you? Spend some time on the career pages of State Department and USAID. Do you like the idea of this as a career for you? Do you meet the eligibility requirements? Because you don't want to start an application and realize that you don't meet the eligibility requirement. So just think about it. Do you want to do this? And then start. The first thing is doing your personal statement. You're going to write a 600-word personal statement that talks about why you want to join the Foreign Service, and and what you bring, or what you've done that would make you successful. So the why is often the hardest part of that question. People are great about talking about what they've done, but why? Is it public service? Do you like international exchange? Do you believe in diplomacy as a way to solve world problems? Do you like the dynamism of the lifestyle? Are you a problem solver? Really think about why. What is it about this career, not just international affairs, but this career that interests you? So you're going to want to write about that. Second thing is, what do you bring? And that's how you put together all the different elements of your background to kind of say, here it is, and this is why it makes sense that I'm doing it. This. And so you can talk about your academics, you can talk about languages you speak. Maybe you come from a multicultural background. Maybe you have a really strong interest in public service. Maybe you've overcome obstacles in your life. And when they've done studies of the Foreign Service, the characteristic that best defines someone who's successful is someone who's resilient, people that can work against obstacles, because there are issues that come up in global affairs that can be very difficult. So if you're one of those people that had to work twice as hard to get where you are, so maybe you had to work while you went to school, or maybe you had to, I don't know, you had to look for funding, or you had to learn English, or whatever it is. You can raise that, not in terms of, I'd like to tell you my problems, but I'd like to tell you how I'm able to overcome difficult situations. We're always interested in that. And so there's a third question that I think is in there, which is not a separate section, but that's, who am I? So in the way you talk about your motivations and your preparations, we should get to know you a little bit. There's an essay that only you can write. So I think we want to see you come through. I just saw a question on if you have a foreign language, does it boost? No, it's not a requirement, but that may be part of your story. So each of you is going to have a story. So for some of you, you may be talking about language and international experiences and really relevant internships. Others of you, maybe you haven't been overseas. So you're going to talk about public service and leadership and, some of the skills that you're getting at school. So both people are going to be really competitive, but just for different reasons. So don't worry about what you don't have. Really focus on what you do have. But we're always interested in people that have foreign languages. But we all every year have people that get the fellowship that don't speak any foreign languages too. So think about what you have and play up what you have. Let's see, where was I in it? Let's see, we're going to look at your academics by looking at your transcript. We're not looking for the perfect 4.0. The person with a 3.9 is not necessarily going to get it over the person with a 3.3. We recognize that, things change. So sometimes you come into college and you have the wrong major. I mean, how many people thought engineering was a good idea up front? And that turns out not to be your thing. So your first year, perhaps not so good. Maybe you're a first generation college student and you were, still trying, this is a big change. We like to see that your grades are improving over time, that they're, stronger in your major, things like that. But do not worry, again, if you do not have a 3.5 or above. We often give it to people that have a 3.2 or 3.3 because we can really see growth. We do like to see that you've taken a variety of different courses and that you've challenged yourself. The next thing we're going to look at is letters of recommendation. So letters of recommendation, you're going to give us two. One is from an academic leader, and the other one is from someone who knows you, as we call it, a community leader. Academic is simply one of your professors or instructors at school. Pick the person who knows you and likes you. We don't care if it's the chairman of the department or an adjunct that's been there for 2 years. We want the person who can be most excited about you, and then help them. So, ask them early because they're busy. Remind them what this program is about, because a good letter of recommendation addresses this opportunity and not just general, he's a fine young man who'll do well no matter what he does, is not a great letter of recommendation. We want them to be able to say, I think she would be an excellent foreign service officer because. Remind them what classes you took, what grade you got, what you did your paper on, because then as they're writing, they have more material, and the enthusiasm comes through more when they can give specifics. So you can help your recommender write something better. You can also pull up the recommendation on our website under the application requirements. There is a link to what the letter of recommendation looks like. You can look at it. You will not actually ever see it. You're going to tell us who the recommender is. We're going to email them. They're going to email us back the letter of recommendation. But you can at least see what's on it, so you can work with your recommender to make sure, that you're telling them these are the types of things, that they want. You might want to mention this. Maybe you want to give them your resume. I believe in putting together a small packet for a recommender so that they have the information on what you're applying for. Don't make them go to the website. You tell them what you're applying for, what they're looking for, how that relates to you, what you've done, and specifics about how they know you. Let's see. For your community leader, that's someone that knows you in a non-academic sense. So it's someone who can talk about you. Maybe it's someone you did an internship with, or your boss at work, or someone that's supervised you in volunteer work. It's not a peer thing. So it's not just one of your friends or somebody. It's someone who's kind of seen you from above and is able to talk about skills in areas like your work ethic, your organizational skills, your ability to work with others, things that show you kind of as an emerging professional. So we want to see you in action. We also give points for financial assistance. And in fact, about 20% of your score has to do with the need for financial assistance. We would much rather give money to people who need it than people that don't need it, which I think makes perfect sense. So how are you going to show that? Well, we don't have one definition because financial need takes a lot of different forms. So you're going to fill out the FAFSA, and you're going to fill out the 2021-2022 FAFSA. Whether or not you're in school, whether or not you have filled it out yet, you're going to fill out that FAFSA form right now because we just need to be able to see some of your finances. Then you get to, and then if you've gotten any assistance during college, you can give us some indication of what it was. So maybe an official letter from your school or something that shows that you've either taken out loans to go to school, or you've gotten Pell Grants, or you've gotten other type of merit scholarships that help you get through. Then you write a 400-word essay on your financial need. That's what kind of pulls this all together, because we can't look at a couple numbers and really understand you. So that's where you can talk about things like that you had to work during school, that you had to, you picked the college that you did because it was really, really excellent, and because it was an in-state school that cost less. Maybe you lived at home to save money. Maybe you went to a community college first. You tell us what you think shows financial need there, and also where you are going forward. So maybe if it's a 2021, 22 FAFSA, that's going to be done based on the 2019 data. And, maybe then you were actually a dependent on your parents' taxes, but you aren't going to be. Tell us that too. So that's why this 400-word essay is so helpful in terms of doing that. Let's see, list all relevant volunteer experiences, work experiences, extracurricular experiences, and try to explain your engagement and leadership in them. So if you put down Habitat for Humanity, I don't know whether or not you went one weekend and hammered in a couple of nails, or you spent a year coordinating meals for volunteers. That's a very different level of leadership and engagement. So think of using strong action verbs to explain your engagement in organizations. Okay. What else? Let's see. And again, leadership does not mean that you have to be the president or the vice president. A good strong action verb, perfectly fine. If you're someone who works or has had to work a lot, please know that we do understand that you may not be able to do all of the extracurriculars that you would like, or all the volunteer, because you're working and going to school. We do take into account work experience too. And so it's pretty clear to the panel when you are working a lot, and we will not ding you for that, because we can use the work experience to show that too. Final thing is proofread. After you've worked on one of these for a while, you almost can't see your own mistakes anymore. Have somebody else read it for you. It's perfectly fine to work with somebody else on your application. Somebody else reads your personal statement, they proofread it. That is not cheating. That is good application preparation. So that's perfectly fine with us. And I'm sure you have wonderful resources at UCF to help with that. Sorry, that was a very long answer to a question.
Let me go back to the slide. Let me pull up Nick's slide in case you wanted to.
Okay, so I was going to talk about Pickering and Payne. So I really don't particularly need to. Pickering, again, is just like Wrangell, except that its internship is different. Its deadlines are a little bit different. You have to apply to that by September 22nd. You'll find out whether or not you are a finalist by the end of October. They're going to interview the middle of November. So you'll know by Thanksgiving whether or not you have that. Can you apply to both? Yes. If you're offered the Pickering, you can either pick the Pickering, which I would do if I were you, because you always want to take the bird in the hand. If you choose to go on to the Wrangell Fellowship, you have to turn down the Pickering, which means that if you don't get the Wrangell, you can't go back and take the Pickering, because they will have given it to somebody else. So personally, I would pick the first one you're offered. We go back and forth as to which program is first each year. This year it's Pickering. So again, both great programs. If you get an offer, take it. I really think that's kind of all I wanted to cover, other than because I talked about Payne and how USAID is different. So I feel like I covered what I needed to. So I'm really happy to answer any questions. And actually, now that I've spoken so much, Nick, please tell me a little bit more about your feelings. I mean, how did you approach doing your application? Obviously, you were wildly successful. How did you approach the process?
Thank you. I, first of all, was one of the ones that only applied to the Wrangell Fellowship and not the Pickering Fellowship, and that was foolish on my part. I'm thankful that I got the Wrangell Fellowship in the end, but as Patricia said earlier, please absolutely apply to both. There's no negative to doing so. And the way that I approached it was I was applying to law school, grad school, and these fellowships all at the same time. I had a variety of passions that I wanted to pursue. And so for me, I was really focused on getting myself into the Foreign Service and focused on those letters of recommendation, and really making sure that my personal statement shared my story about who I am. That third piece that Patricia talked about who you really are, you want that to come across. Because that's something where if you do get yourself invited to the interview portion, that comes up in your one-on-one interview that you have throughout that process. They want to know who you are, why you chose the Foreign Service. And so I would take some time before you even start to write to really ask yourself, why me? Why do I personally want to join this career? Why me and why this career? And if you can answer that question for you before you start writing, I feel that your application is going to be so much stronger because you're going to have some passion behind the words that you're putting in. I had no idea that I was interested in China and wanting to go there until I got to grad school, until I became a Rango Fellow myself, and I worked on the Hill and got to work on some China issues with the member of Congress. And then when I saw China on my bid list, I knew immediately that's where I wanted to go. So your passions are going to ebb and flow. They're going to change over time and evolve. And that's essentially how I decided to approach these fellowships. And just one thing that I want all of you guys to know, I love UCF. I love all the students at UCF and everything that UCF has done for me over the years. It's been 10 years since I stepped foot on campus, and here I am now 4+ years into the Foreign Service, and it's been an amazing journey. But for all of you, absolutely feel free to reach out to me as you are going through this process and work on your applications. If you have questions about the fellowships or anything of that nature, feel free to reach out to me. I'm more than happy to help Knights on this journey as they're figuring it out. So don't be shy. There are so many students from these different things that I've done in the past for UCF that still reach out to me to this day that I'm still in touch with as they continue to pursue their life and their career in the Foreign Service. And there's others of us. So I'm a Rango Fellow from UCF. Amanda Fleming is a 2017 Pickering Fellow. She's currently in Washington on her way to Saudi Arabia in a few weeks. So there's a bunch of us Knights that have joined the Foreign Service that are doing this thing, and we would be more than happy to help you. So don't feel that you don't have anybody that also graduated from UCF that can't help you out here.
Oh, Nick, I have a question for you that maybe you'd be able to answer. So if you were an applicant and you had been out of school for a little while, maybe your professors forgot about you. How do you get a letter of rec from an academic person when you are out of school for a while?
Absolutely. So I've awkwardly been in this situation once. Thankfully, I've kept contact with my good professors from when I wrote either a thesis or I just took a class with them. Keep in touch with people in a variety of ways. There's not one way to keep in touch. There's no right way or wrong way. But if you have to cold email somebody, that is okay. But just kind of remind them who you are and why you're reaching out to them. There's one thing that I've learned. I've had some people cold email me or cold reach out to me after not talking for months or a few years. And I'm always open and saying, hey, absolutely, like let's figure out what you're doing. But help them as much as you can. Whether you are very close to this person and you have a great relationship with them and you talk to them all the time, or it's the first time that you've reached out to them in a year and a half, help them with that process as much as possible. Explain exactly what you plan on doing and why you're reaching out to them, what you need them to do. Give them as much lead time as possible to prepare as people are busy. I mean, nowadays, I feel like with as much as we're doing at home over the last year, the emails are just exhausting. So put as much information into that email as possible, and don't be afraid to reach out, but also don't just reach out to one person. Reach out to a variety of people, give yourself as many options as possible, but more than anything, reach out as early as possible so that people have time to help you out.
Yeah, and that does happen sometimes. And again, yeah, give them information. If you really get to the point where you really, sometimes we've had cases where people's main professor has died. Or, if the person's retired, it's perfectly fine to have something from a retired person as long as they're talking. But that does happen. It is possible to substitute a separate letter. But in that separate letter, we would like to be something that's really going to talk about some of the academics So again, someone who can talk about your writing skills, your analytical skills. Maybe it's someone you did research with versus a professor. Someone that can get at some of the academic issues that we're looking for is going to be very useful. But please know that professors are usually very happy to write them because, again, from all of our institutions, we want our students to do well. We want them to win these awards. And so if I can write a letter of recommendation, I know I'm going to write a letter of recommendation, but I'm going to need help if it's somebody that I do not know well. And I may push back. I may say, I may not be the best person. You want to talk about it. And then once they explain to me that, there's a reason why they can't go to somebody else, and then I'm more willing to do it. So it may not be as easy as just one email. It may be a conversation so they can see that you really are very passionate about this opportunity and that it is worth their time to do.
Okay, Patricia, I'm gonna put it up the screen to get contact information. I guess we can close out since we are 2 minutes till time. Where can they get more information about us?
Oh, look at our websites. Give us a call. We do office hours. We are always really happy to help. Our program only works when we get great people like you. So we're always willing to chat about the Foreign Service, about the fellowship. Also, we have a lot of, we've done a lot of programming on the Foreign Service, on Foreign Service lifestyles as part of this. So you can find also a lot of videos on it on our website too. Is that it? So anyway, thank you so much, everybody who came to listen. I hope you will consider the fellowship. We would love to have more nights as part of the Brangle Fellowship and part of the Foreign Service. We had a missed question. Can I answer that quickly as everybody leaves? Can someone tell me what the missed question was?
Yes, I'm sorry, Lindsay. I think we are at time. So if you still have additional questions, and Patricia, if you'd like to stay behind for a couple of minutes to answer
Sure.
the remaining question, that would work. For everybody else, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you, Patricia, Nick, Lindsay. This was very, very informative. And the questions we got were, I know I learned a lot. So thank you so much for being with us. And if you still have a question, please reach out. The contact information was shared earlier, or you can stay behind for a couple minutes. We'll give a few more minutes and for Patricia and Nick to answer your questions. Thank you, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, I can read Ryan's kind of a big question. He says, I only have a 2.8 GPA, but did go to Valencia College and UCF at Valencia. I did have a 3.7. Could that be acceptable? Also, if Ryan can speak, I don't know if maybe he can elaborate.
Yeah, the other thing, Ryan, it's hard. We would have to look at it. So what you could do is send us your transcripts, and we can do a comprehensive evaluation of them, because again, it has to be a year. It has to be, so just send us the transcripts and we'll be glad to look them over and see if that gets you to the 3.2. So what would you say was the best, Lindsay? I mean, you can send them to me. It's pscroggs@howard.edu, and I'll be glad to review your transcripts for you.
Right, and you can always copy Wrangle Program, Pickering Fellowship. I will go ahead and send Mervate the contacts, so you guys should all get that information and reach out that way if you guys have questions. But any of that works. And thanks, Nick, for sharing your contact information. I'm sure you'll have a lot of questions.
Absolutely, yeah. Feel free to reach out anytime. Happy to help however I can.
Thanks. It's good to see you. I'm glad you're enjoying Istanbul. I so much want to go there. So.
Oh my goodness. I hope you can make it over the next 2 years while I'm here. It's a beautiful place.
Good. Well, excellent. Good to see you. And thanks so much for coming back. What time is it there?
11 p.m.
Thank you. Excellent. Do we have any more questions before we end?
I think we're good.
Thank you, Mervate.
Thank you, Lindsay, for being with us today. Thank you.